Before we get into today's checkout, I want to invite you into something brand new, our free Slack Add to Cart community. After 4 years of bringing you experts and leaders in e-commerce, I thought it was time to connect to you, our listeners. I have no doubt that you can share experiences, tips, and questions that will help you in your e-commerce businesses and careers. It makes sense to bring you all together. If that sounds like a community that you want to be a part of, head on over to addtocart.com.au/e-commerce-community to join.
Welcome to the checkout. We catch up with previous Add to Cart guests and ask them 5 quick questions to get to know them better and leave you with a little extra inspiration to get through your Friday. Here's your host, Bushy.
Today's checkout features Drew Mansur, co-founder of TileCloud, an online D2C store transforming the often confusing and overwhelming tile buying process. With over 300,000 Instagram followers, that's 300,000 Instagram followers for a tile shop, and partners on board such as Three Birds Renovations, TileCloud provides inspiration and the goods to elevate your reno with minimum fuss. Drew, welcome to the checkout. Thank you so much for joining us. In our main episode, we talked a lot around your role in the customer experience across the whole renovation journey and how you can make that as simple as possible, as well as your expansion into B2B and some of the technology automations that you've put in place to make sure that you can focus on the customer. But we're here to learn a little bit more about you. So I've got 5 quick questions. Number 1, what's the weirdest thing that you've ever bought online?
I got a little adventurous and I bought this. It's like a printing gun. Like imagine it looks like a super soaker and you can print on like 3-dimensional objects, kind of like outdoors and stuff. Like, and get a load of this. I thought it was a red hot price. Turned out to be a scam. They just took my money. I got nothing.
Oh, what were you planning on printing?
Those printing things are a real thing, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen them in real life, like on T-shirts.
Yeah, I wanted to label pallets that have like boxes of tiles all on it, and it's like a super rough surface for like, batching and stuff like that. Good intentions, but I think I learned my lesson. Don't buy exotic printers online.
You don't have a printing gun?
No. I also didn't follow up and go buy one in real life. Anyway, I parked the idea.
Leave that trauma behind. All right, number 2. Who is your favourite retailer?
Aussie or international?
Have you got one of both?
Yeah, okay. International, it's a bit basic, but I really like to study Apple. And I'm fascinated by how they make like really complex stuff simple, and the way that they organize their menus and the way that they hide their information and the way that it kind of like comes out. Like I'm just fascinated by that. And like simplicity for us is a big part of our one of our kind of like core tenets of what we're trying to make this process. And so I think learning from people that do it really well is fascinating. So that'd be my international inspiration. My local retailer that I love is I really love Jason, the team up at LSKD up in Logan in Queensland there. We're part of an e-commerce community, and it's been fun watching their journey and sort of seeing how they have better understood their purpose and their mission and really lent into that, and how that sort of translated into business success for them. Yeah, they're just doing good stuff.
Yeah, they are. Have you done the HQ workout there?
I've not done the HQ workout there, but it's a cracking gym for a warehouse. Like, yeah, that's an awesome facility for the staff.
Quick funny story for you. I went and saw Jace a few months ago and met him. It was like middle of the day. So I was like 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. Rock up and he comes out and we shake hands and his hand was freezing cold. I'm like, oh mate, that's cold. And he's going, yeah, sorry, just jumped out of the ice bath. Just before this meeting. So I've just been chilling in an ice bath. There you go.
Center himself.
Exactly. I'm glad he didn't ask me to join him in the ice bath for the meeting. All right, number 3. Which e-commerce practice do you wish was history?
Oh, I'll probably say I'm not a big fan of that kind of like that sort of wasteful grab 6 sizes and know that you're going to return a bunch of them. It's not a big thing in tile. So like, it's not something that I feel like I'm proactively needing to like manage in our world, but more as a consumer, I just have an awareness for like wanting to like never do that to retailers that I buy from. It's like, figure it out. Get your size, just buy the thing and be done.
Need some sort of sampling program.
That'd be nice. A universal sizing? I don't know. I think sizes are meant to be universal, but like they just kind of aren't. Like, I don't know, everybody interprets the sizing differently. Maybe someone should sort that out.
This is two blokes talking about sizing problems. You know what I mean? Like, I think if we've got problems, then I know how bad it is in female fashion, the differences in what's a size 10 in some places versus other places. It's it is a big problem. Number 4, can you recommend a book or a podcast that our listeners should immediately get into?
I'm going to recommend the first business book that I read where I was like, oh, this is like impactful on a day-to-day. And it's How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. And the thing that sort of like tripped me out was that it was written like ages ago, but that all of the teachings are so relevant, like, and continue to just be like, it's about managing relationships with people in business and personally, I guess, to a certain extent, but kind of just that when I'm bored, I put it on. Like, I'm just like, I'll just go through that again. Like, it's almost like at any time, any chapter can relate to something you're doing in your life. It's like kind of like if you have like 10 minutes to listen to something and you're like not keen to like start a new thing, just rip a chapter of that. It's good.
I think it's, like you said, it's a great starting point if you haven't done a lot of business books, like, because it's the foundation of everything, right? Is relationships.
I would also say that I feel like the title does it a bit of an injustice. Like, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's it feels a bit dirty to me, but the contents feel not so aligned to that.
Is there a tip in there that's kind of stuck in the back of your brain that you always go, I will always do that? So for me, when I read that, the thing that immediately clicked was people like hearing their name said out loud. And, as a 20-year-old, when I read that, and I was like, that's why people say names, and like, especially when you're introducing, because it creates that connection. So to me, that was like a aha moment. Did you have similar?
Yeah, I think interestingly, it's also probably playing to the ego a little bit. And he talks about a merger of two industry titans. I think it was a Bethlehem Steel Company and somebody else, and they were going to merge and kind of go into partnership together. And, they're fierce competitors, and he was sort of setting up the deal. And the punchline is essentially, it's like, well, what would the new entity be called? And he's like, well, obviously we'd call it your name. And like, you can imagine how that would land in real life, right? Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, we would. And it's like, you're on board, So like that, I don't know, let's call it credit for the deal. If you can structure a proposal in that way, let me tell you, it lands better.
Love it. All right, last question I have for you, Drew. Finish this sentence. The future of retail is?
The future of retail is, I think it's probably just going to keep getting more and more convenient. And I don't want to pretend like I know exactly what that looks like, but I do think that we're going to start to see more and more as we move away from like the cookied browsing experience where, brands kind of like know what you're doing in the internet, like more broadly. You're still sharing what you're doing with like individual brands in the way that you specifically interact with one specific one. And so I think our experiences will become just more and more customized with our sort of like favorite brands. It's like, my relationship with, my supermarket, for example, is going to continue to get more and more refined as they know what I want and they point me to the good stuff and, that kind of thing. And I think that that'll be ultimately useful because it's kind of like, and I think that there'll be, it's a bit boring, but like, I think that the regulation around, using people's personal information and consenting to doing all that stuff, there's privacy reforms, like that will be impactful. And it's definitely going to shape how people are sort of like tracked, but also how they're fed a customized experience.
Love it. And it kind of ties nicely back to what we were talking about right at the start of our main conversation around the frustration around not being able to have that tracking of the customer journey all the way through because people use different email addresses. It might come from different household members. So that might just be something we're stuck with, that we have to learn to live with imperfect data. That's the world we're in. Drew, thank you so much for joining us on the checkout.
No worries at all.
To hear more from Drew, jump back into episode 334, where Drew shares his thoughts on custom websites,
He tells us the practical filters he uses when producing strategic content, and he shares the surprising response he has for the numerous TileCloud copycats that are out there.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep adding to cart.